And welcome into another edition of the Aggie Overtime Zoomcast. I'm Scott Marsh. Today's episode, our second one, is with Dr. Jeremiah Ray, the head team physician for UC Davis Athletics. Doc, how are you?
Doing well. Yourself?
Doing well, staying safe, and that's the most important thing during these times. And we appreciate you coming on today's program. Certainly you have a lot of information. A lot of people are trying to know what's going on with the overall virus and how to stay healthy and safe, and of course, how everything is going inside UC Davis Athletics as well. And I know you've been in a lot of calls and you've been following this extremely closely. First of all, just what can you tell us about how things are going currently with inside UC Davis Athletics?
Thanks for having me, Scott. Well, things are going pretty well. Within athletics, everyone is healthy and we're all doing as we should. Most of our athletes are at home with their families, sheltering in place, as is the California recommendation. And in Yolo County, that's where UC Davis is, there's a recommendation from the Yolo County Department of Public Health to shelter in place. And so when you go out, it's a little bit of a quiet town, but that's good. No one is giving high fives or sharing soda pops right now, which is exactly how we want it. But our numbers of COVID-19 are very slow on the rise, which is nice. And so we've talked a lot about flattening the curve.
Yeah.
We saw what happened in China. We saw what happened in Italy. We saw what happened in New York City, where people did not shelter in place and where people were engaging in social contact quite a bit. We have not been doing that, and our numbers are very slow to rise, which is exactly how we want it. And so we're hopeful that we are cresting. So not a big spike, but we're hopeful that things are coming to a point where the growth is predictable and steady and slow and at a pace that we can accommodate. So everyone's got their fingers crossed. The next 2 weeks are going to continue as we are seeing them, and the outcomes will be pretty positive.
Yeah, absolutely. California in general has done a great job with flattening the curve. So many of our public officials have been tremendous in terms of helping this not be worse than what's already obviously a very bad situation here. Now, Doc, just walk us back, going back to mid-March when all the rules came out and the orders came down that athletics were going to be shutting down, and obviously basketball was down in Los Angeles at the time, getting ready to take place in the Big West tournament in Anaheim. That stopped. Spring sports got shut down. How did you guys get through the process of just taking care of all of those steps that had to be done back at that time in mid-March?
At that point, it was very interesting because everyone in the United States was still hopeful that what we were seeing happening in other countries would maybe not happen here. As a bit of wishful thinking. In reality, we all knew it was coming, and we were hopeful that it would just be as down the calendar as we could expect. But it happened pretty quickly. And so NC2A, Big West, Big Sky, the UC system, California, we are really under a lot of governing bodies, UC Davis Athletics. And so about the same time, right there in March, everyone got together and kind of said, you know what we need to do for everyone's health and safety is to stop the athletics right now. And so that was a bit of a shock for a lot of the athletes who were hopeful that they would get to play their season out. But I think the vast majority of the student athletes understood, and especially when they're seeing what's happening on the news in other cities when they're not doing those shelter-in-place recommendations. So we're all hopeful that soon the curve will be nice and crested and our healthcare system will be well equipped to take care of everyone that comes in. And so maybe in the coming weeks to months, we might be able to see a gradual return to normalcy.
Yeah, absolutely. As we talk with Dr. Ray here, head team physician for UC Davis Athletics. This is the Aggie Overtime Zoomcast brought to you by your local Geico office. I remind you, during the COVID crisis, your local Geico office is open until 8 p.m. each evening to assist you with all your insurance needs. Give them a call at 916-923-5050 and let the people who do it best help you. Now, doctor, of course, everybody wants your medical expertise as well. There's been a lot of talk about face covering, masks, wear them, don't wear them. The first edict was you don't need to wear one. Now it's come out. Please wear one if you go outside. Can you explain for that in medical terms what's going on there?
Happy you asked that. That's a good question and an important question. I want to preface this by we don't really know. So we are doing our very best based upon a lot of limited information. So I'll take a few steps back. Coronavirus is a very common virus. It's the second most common cause of the common cold. So every human has been exposed to many, many, many strains of coronavirus. Now, this particular strain, the SARS-CoV-2 variant of the coronavirus that we're seeing, has some mischievous abilities in the human body that's causing a lot more problems than the normal coronaviruses. And the reason that is just bad luck, really. So viruses are really, really bad at replicating their genetic material. Humans are fantastic. So we pass our genetic material on very, very efficiently, very well. We have lots of proofreading and editing capabilities. Whereas viruses are just very sloppy, and so they're mutating all the time, which is why you have to get your flu shot every year, because the flu is constantly mutating, constantly changing. So this particular mutated, changed version of the coronavirus is causing a lot of problems for humans. Now, the thing about coronavirus is it's very contagious. So when you breathe out just normal talking, normal respiration, you're exhaling some viral particles. And that's the whole point in the face coverings that the CDC is recommending, is that you're trying to keep some of your spit that's potentially containing viral particles to yourself. It's not protecting you from other people. It's just kind of trying to keep your plume of sputum to yourself. It's almost like if when you're breathing out, you're shooting a paintball gun, you put a bush right in front of your mouth. Basically, that paintball gun is not as effective. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. And so the face covering is to help protect all the people around you in those circumstances where you need to be out. You have to go to the pharmacy, or you have to go to the grocery store. You have to put gas in your car. There are times when you have to go out and you're going to have to be near people. And this is the way to protect the people around you. Now, healthcare workers, when you are in contact with patients, they're actually wearing medical grade masks that have a small enough net that will filter out some of the viruses that are coming through, and then they're actually ionically charged, that will then trap the rest of the viruses. So they're very effective when they're used properly for healthcare providers, but that's not recommended for everybody else who's just casually passing by someone in the grocery store.
Gotcha. Thank you, Dr. Ray, for that explanation. Again, this is our second episode of the Aggie Overtime Zoomcast. Today's episode presenter is Buckhorn Grill. Family feasts have arrived at your local Buckhorn, both curbside pickup and delivery available. Don't forget to add one of their 4-pack craft beverages for $10 too. You can order them today at buckhorngrill.com and use code BUCK10 for an additional 10% off. Now, Doctor, we've done a good job in California. Yolo County, as you said, has done a good job. UC Davis is doing a great job of flattening the curve as best we can. Everybody is anxious to get back to quote-unquote normality at some point. Can you talk about what that time period might look like and what the new norm might look like, both in society and at UC Davis in regards to athletics?
Such a great question. I wish I had an answer for you. It is tough, man.
I do too.
Yeah, right. It is tough. So we don't know when. We do know that we're increasing our abilities to test people for COVID-19. And that is the most important part of figuring out when our transition back to normalcy will occur. So as we test our community members and we're ramping up our abilities, UC Davis Medical Center is actually one of the great centers that received a very nice Roche machine that can test up to 1,000 samples a day. And so we are endorsed by the CDC in the state of California, and we're a referral center for community testing, which is fantastic. And so we're ramping up our testing. And as we increase our testing abilities, we'll have a better sense of how many people in our community are silent carriers or truly negative or have something else. And so as we understand who actually has this and the true infectious rate of this, we're going to have a lot more recommendations. And so right now, we don't have very good data to make good recommendations. But if I had to imagine, I think that probably April and May are going to be a lot of figuring things out. Toward the end of May, I imagine that once we have things figured out and local production of PPE, personal protective equipment for all of our first responders, firefighters, police officers, and healthcare workers, as we increase our local production of those and we can accommodate all of their needs, I think that things will begin to progress gradually towards normal over June, July, and August.
Yep, and of course that leads us into fall sports in September. And of course, a lot of people come up to me and ask me about football season and what may happen at this point. I know at this point, everybody's just got a crystal ball at this point, but as you talk about being able maybe to gather back in groups greater than 10, things like that, it may be a phased back rollout of what might happen in terms of group gatherings and be able to do team meetings, team practices, workouts, etc. Correct?
That's correct. And the interesting thing about this, Scott, is that it's a lot like when we had the wildfires. Every team is disadvantaged equally. And so it's not as though one team that might have more resources or more money or more boosters is advantaged over the other one. Every human is going through this the same way. So we're all disadvantaged equally on an athletic perspective. And I got to tell you, everyone wants to get back to this. I was just cleaning out my garage, as I think everybody is, and I found a college application letter. And I remember I just reread my college essay, and it was talking about dreaming of becoming a sports medicine doctor. And let me tell you, I want to be out there.
Yeah.
It's like you guys do, very, very much. But we're going to do it the right way. We're going to be very smart about it. We're not going to risk anybody's well-being to do this. If I had to guess, I would guess that we're going to have fall athletics, but we're going to have a different version of it, whether it's going to be a later start date, whether it's going to be the contests are spaced out a little bit more. I think that's going to happen. I don't think we're going to cancel the fall athletics based on everything we're seeing. I think that's an unlikely scenario.
Yeah, well, that is certainly good news. And then most importantly, Doctor, just curious in terms of your interactions just overall with student athletes during this time. Obviously, there's a lot of stress. There's so many concerns that, our student athletes have on campus. What have you been able to tell them, and how have you been able to communicate with them?
Well, they've been thrown for a loop.
Yeah,
they've been the star athletes all through junior high and high school. And they got their scholarships, or they earned a spot as a walk-on on a Division I NC2A program. They really love what they have earned for themselves, and they cherish that. And that's been put on pause, which is troubling for a lot of them. And a lot of them are grappling with this new temporary reality that they don't get to be with all their buddies and all their teammates. And that was a source of happiness and joy and comfort and therapy and relief, all of those good things. And so I would say, just like everybody else, our athletes are feeling some negative impacts of this whole deal. And so we're finding ways and mechanisms to reach out to them. And so just like how you and I are on a video chat right now, we've switched my clinic over almost exclusively to a video medicine clinic. And so we're having nice video chats with hundreds of athletes. Not all of them are needing services, and that's fine. Periodically, I'll have to bump into clinic. We've had a few things, urgent care things, where I've had to either sew up a laceration from plyometrics, where an athlete put their head through the sheetrock of their apartment and needed some stitches, and just amazing stories that you can't come up with. But I'm doing my best to keep them out of urgent cares and out of the ER and out of the healthcare system. But mostly it's video visits. Yeah. And it seems to be okay for now, but we'll see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, and we're glad to hear, as far as we know, no student athlete is reported positive for coronavirus. And obviously that's the very most important thing here. Coaches, obviously, too, you're in constant communication with them all the time. But I got to imagine in this era right now, you are like their mentor, their counselor, their go-to person right now.
Oh man, it's fun. I'm learning all about the coaches right now, because they are so concerned for their teams. Oh my gosh. they're constantly calling, I got this idea, I saw this website, what do you think about this? Because they're trying to be engaged, they're trying to be proactive and trying to stay sane themselves. I mean, they are coaches, they want to coach, and when you take that away from them, it's challenging for them. And so it's I mean, that's what I'm here for. I'm here for all of the coaches, I'm here for all of UC Davis, I'm here for all of our athletes, and it feels like a blessing to be able to help them out if I can.
Well, I know it's a real blessing that we have you there, and I know it is a safe activity when Coach Hawk gets on his lawnmower and starts with his helmet and starts mowing his lawn. That is acceptable behavior. That's recreational still.
Yeah, and you're joking, but I want to bring up another point. I want to make sure that everyone, even though we're going a little stir crazy and people might get a little creative with their activities of recreation, you still want to be really smart. The way that I counsel people is only do activities that you would do if you were on a deserted island. Imagine that you don't have access to care and then go ahead and do that activity, because we never quite know when our emergency room is not going to be able to take care of a normal injury that could occur. So biking, rock climbing, practicing your flips off of your roof into your pool, this is not the time to practice those things. But if you're going to do some going for a run, normal road cycling, normal exercises, that's fine.
Yeah, no, that's a great point indeed. Dr. Ray, we appreciate your time so much. It's great to hear from you. And I know so many people out there within the UC Davis athletic community appreciate your words, your guidance during these times.
Well, happy to help. Have me back anytime.
All right. I hope to see you in the fall for sure, if not sooner.
Absolutely. Take care.
Right. That's going to do it for this edition of the Aggie Overtime. Again, the Aggie Overtime Zoomcast brought to you by your Geico local office. Dr. Ray, this episode's guest. We're going to have more coming up with you on a weekly basis. We'll be talking to both Coach Jim West and Jennifer Gross as well. For tuning in, everybody. And as always, go Ags.